Alright, it's official. This is the coolest Arcade1up Rampage cabinet in existence. Alright, so about a year ago, I put out a video called Arcade1up Rampage Mods Final Update because I thought it was done. I thought I had done everything I was going to do to this cabinet, and it was a done deal, and I was happy with it. Which is true, I was happy with it at the time, but as the time went on, I discovered more things I could do and I got more ideas and I just went crazy with it. So the point of this video is to show these mods and talk about them and kind of give you some ideas about what you can do with your own cabinet. It doesn't have to be Rampage, it could be any of them, but hopefully this gets the cogs turning a little bit. Okay, so I turned it off. I wanted to show you the power switch. So the control panel has been completely reworked. It's the same control panel, but what I did is I took the switches and I threw them away, threw them in the trash. The power switch, the volume switches, I just took them out and threw them away. I also filled one of the sides, the side for the volume, where the volume switch originally was. I filled that in with some wood putty, sanded it over, and I spray painted the whole thing a glossy black finish, and then I put another clear coat on there, and it looked really nice. And the point of doing that was so I can change the button layout. So that was a big problem that I had with the original Rampage arcade control panel layout, was that players 1, 2, and 3, their start buttons for those players was all right next to each other, so they were not really in a good position to where they could be reached easily by that player. There'd be a lot of like reaching over, and it wasn't really that great. But anyways, back to the power switch. So since there's no regular power switch, I didn't like rewire anything or connect any pins on the Raspberry Pi or anything like that. And that's another thing I was going to mention. This is a Raspberry Pi B3 in this Arcade1up. I basically followed the ETA Prime tutorial on how to do that. So it came out really, really good. And so the power, I didn't, like I said, I didn't rewire anything. I didn't change any pins. What I did is I just have a regular old surge protector. It's actually on the back of the unit, the back of the cabinet, and everything's plugged into it. The monitor, the Raspberry Pi, everything I need, the speakers, it's all plugged in. But the surge protector is plugged into another outlet that plugs into the wall. And then that little outlet, it's got a little satellite switch, a little button that is now on top of the unit. So whenever I want to turn it on, I just press the button, like so. Ah, just like that. Another thing I did, which is out of sight, out of mind, is I upgraded the power supply on the Raspberry Pi because I noticed that the stock power supply that it came with wasn't quite powerful enough to emulate certain games. It was really struggling, and I was like, why are the games running so slowly? And it was inconsistent. Like sometimes it'd run fine, other times it'd run like it was like super slow, underwater. I didn't know what was going on. And after fiddling with all the settings and not having any luck, I was like, hey, maybe I should try a better power supply. So I did. I actually found a really good one, and it's been working beautifully. The games run smooth as butter, just as they always should. Pretty much perfect emulation all across the board. And I'm going to put a link in the description below for all the parts that I used, like the power supply and the power switch, stuff like that, and the Raspberry Pi. I'll just throw whatever I could find. Any link that you need to build one of these yourself, I'm going to throw it in there. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, the speakers that I have connected to the Raspberry Pi are not the stock speaker that came with the Arcade1up cabinet. They're actually a pair of Logitech Z313 speakers, which are PC speakers, but it's got a subwoofer in there, and the two satellite speakers are actually up here on the top. This is the least elegant, unpretty feature of this entire cabinet. So the speakers are actually held in place by Gorilla Tape. It's not, like I said, it's not the most elegant solution, but it works. It works totally fine. It doesn't look terrible. And when you're playing it, it's totally fine. It sounds great, and there's no issues at all. Going back to the control panel, the 3 start buttons that the original locations were at, I actually covered up 2 of them using these little stoppers, I guess you would call them. These little plugs. The only purpose of these things are to plug up holes on your arcade control panel. So I bought 2 of those to plug up 2 of the holes. And the one on the far right is actually the player 2 start button now, or the 3rd player button. For games that use 3 buttons, I kind of double mapped the start and the 3rd button into one key. And as you may have noticed, the player 1 and player 3 start buttons are in different locations than they were originally when this was first brought out of the box. It's a lot better now because player 1, player 2, and player 3 are all completely separate, and there's no cross mingling whatsoever. It's great. And yeah, so I did have to drill a couple of holes, and no mistakes. Can't make a mistake, because if you do, you have to like redo the whole thing and get a whole new control panel, and I didn't want to do that, so I just crossed my fingers and just made sure I did it right. So this white button right here, you'll notice, is the only non-lit button, non-LED button on the control panel, and this is where the power switch would have been on the stock Arcade1up control panel. But this is now the hotkey, and I gotta give a shout out to DIY Retro Arcade for the buttons and the controller joysticks. They did a great job, and they actually sell packages. So if you have, for instance, the Street Fighter 2 cabinet, you can just buy the Street Fighter 2 LED mod kit, which comes with all the buttons. You get to choose the colors. It comes with the replacement bat joystick tops, so you can just switch out the circular ones if you don't prefer those, for these really cool looking bubble ones. Or you can switch it out for one of the solid colors they have on their website. But excellent customer service, quick shipping, excellent products. They're beautiful. I love them. Last thing we're going to talk about for right now is going to be the theme. So, man, I must have gone through like 100 different of these themes, of these Retro Pi themes, because you can change the way it looks and the layout. And I always keep coming back to the default Carbon theme. It's the best one. It's just the best. Sorry. It's the best theme, it's the best layout, it has the best font, it's not annoying to look at. It's really, nothing compares to it. At the time of this recording, I have over 360 games on this cabinet. So 83 games are arcade games, and I have various other systems. I just went crazy with it. I'm like, what can I put in this thing that'll actually work and not be silly with these controls? So yeah, so we got Sega Master System. I've got a handful of games there. Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. Neo Geo, original Nintendo, PC Engine or TurboGrafx-16, Sega 32X, Super Nintendo. And that one I actually want to show it to you because I know what you're probably thinking. What the heck? Players 1, 2, and 3 only have 3 buttons each. How are you going to replicate a Super Nintendo controller using 3 buttons? It's not possible. The answer? You're right, it's not possible. But there are a few games that only use 1, 2, or 3 buttons. And those are the games I got here. So let's check them out. Donkey Kong Country. Oh, I just got killed. Final Fight 2. Turtles in Time. And there's a lot more where that came from. But when it came time to actually purchase an Arcade1up cabinet, I've been looking at them for a long time. I ended up going with the Rampage Arcade1up cabinet over the Street Fighter one because I really wanted the 3-player layout. I wanted the 3-player control scheme. And there's a lot of games that are 3-player or 4-player that I have mapped to the 3 controllers. So it's great. I love it. It's really fantastic. And I love how it came out, and it's beautiful. And just to give you an idea about how good the speakers are, I mean, these are Logitech Z313s, like I mentioned, so they're not the highest end speakers you can possibly buy, but they do sound good. I'm going to throw in some Alien vs. Predator, which of course is a 3-player title, which works great with this control scheme. And we're going to play it with the volume up.
Select your claim. Round 1.
Eat it! Oh! Come put the hurt on! Alright, well I hope you enjoyed this short tour of my Arcade1up cabinets. Like I said, hopefully it gives you some ideas and maybe gets the wheels turning in your own head about what you can do with your own Arcade1up cabinet. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.